Hi everyone, welcome to Own Tomorrow. This is a follow-up from our episode on owning our mistakes. And I wanted to have this be its own episode because I feel like there's going to be a lot of gold in value in the information that's going to be shared. And one thing we talked about during the Owning Our Mistakes episode is, the distinction that sometimes we deal with legal situations and work situations, and we're placed in a position where owning up to a mistake can be admitting guilt or fault, right? Or thinking we're doing the right thing or being nice or looking out for others, and it ends up backfiring, right?
Yeah.
Which seems like it's something that happened to you. I don't know Veronica's full story yet. Like, I know the very superficial story, so you're all going to be finding out, the details about this along with me. So I'm so excited to hear about it. So Veronica, so what was the mistake that happened? Like, how did it occur?
So I had a team when I was a private banker, and I had an analyst that was working for me, completing an account opening for a client. And the analyst was able to pull in private information for another client that had the same name in our system.
Was that done intentionally?
No, it was an accident.
Okay, but the same name created that mix up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
so
right.
The same name created the mix up, and when that happened, there's certain steps that need to be taken that the analyst needed to take to correct that mistake. And I wasn't in the office at the moment, so he kind of panicked, and instead of following the proper protocol
the analyst
okay. Yeah, so the analyst panicked and was like, oh my god, the actual client just sent me back the documents and he crossed everything out that I had pre-filled because that's not him. So essentially, unknown client, his information was sent to another client. So that the correct client didn't think anything of it. He just erased the other information and wrote in his information.
Okay.
And so at that moment, the analyst should have reported it to compliance as a breach in security measures and privacy, like being, a violation happening.
Okay.
And he did not do that until he waited for me to get to the office, but he had already skipped steps in the protocol.
Okay, so it sounds like there is a very specific protocol with very specific steps to take in an environment where you were working.
Right, because we were
and they weren't taken.
It was billionaires and millionaires information, private information that was being shared. So obviously, for me and you, we don't want our social being shared with somebody else, even if it's on accident. So imagine you're a multi-millionaire or a billionaire, and that kind of mistake happens, right? So it's human error. Also, there were other factors that came in, but I'll let you ask me more questions so that I can try to make it as clear as possible.
Sure. Okay, so what happened next? So this person didn't follow the steps, right?
So the analyst didn't follow the steps.
Okay.
And then by the time I came in to figure it all out and get the process going, it was almost too late. My compliance team was already sort of really upset with what had happened and with me and with the analyst for not following the protocol.
Is this because you were in a position where this analyst was working under you and you were overseeing and in charge of all the steps? Okay.
Yeah.
Were you aware that this had happened, or did you have no idea?
I was informed after the fact. After he made the mistake, after the documents came back, then he told me, he called me right away, and then I got to the office as soon as possible.
Okay.
And then from there, I followed all the steps that were required and that were part of the protocol, right, to make things right. And then about a week later, I was called into our manager's office and was told that because of the incident that had happened, I was being sent home and they were going to be completing an investigation to see what had happened.
Okay.
And that's the part where I feel like I owned the mistake, like I owned the analyst's mistake as my own, because I wasn't in the office to tell him, hey, stop. Before you do anything, let's get compliance involved right away.
Okay, and in what way did you own your mistake during that situation?
So I had
what
never,
did you say? Or like,
yeah, like
you know.
I had never been in a situation where was being investigated before. So when I got a phone call from somebody that was from HR, I didn't know that was the only chance I was going to get to say my part of the story.
Okay.
And so I showed maybe too much empathy for the analyst. And I was like, well, he's really busy. He's got a lot of work because he's supporting me and this other top banker. And, and I very lightly touched on how technical difficulties or system access was messed up. And if that system access would have been correct, it would have completely avoided this whole thing from happening.
Okay.
So if the system hadn't allowed us to pull that other client's information, which it shouldn't have, and that was like a key thing that happened that I then didn't relay to this investigator. I didn't make that as big of a deal as I could have, because I honestly think that if I would have shared how we should have never even had access to that billionaire's information, it should have never gotten pulled into the documents, like this would have never happened, and kind of put it back on the company and on the system, that would have, I think, saved me from being let go, honestly.
Yeah.
And I regret not like having my back in that discussion.
Yes. So for our viewers, you see, this was a situation and Veronica was trying to be nice and trying to be protective.
Yeah. And like the leader,
and trying to own a mistake, right? Because this is my position, so I can see how maybe the story was, this is my position, so it is my mistake because I should have known better, and so maybe like justifying it in that way, and that's where it gets tricky, right? That's why it's so important to take time in any mistake. Always give yourself that time to really think about how this should be approached and if there are any consequences and ramifications that are going to happen from what you're going to say and how to present it, right? Because if Veronica could have chosen to have said something different, right? And given more attention to the system, right? And it's not lying, and it's not you not being nice, and it's you just really being smart,
right?
About
strategic, about where I was
and how you're explaining the situation, right? And so that's why it's so important not to just like jump in or think that you're doing the right thing immediately, because a lot of times like it's a lot more than that, and what the consequences were, like you lost your dream job, right? And this was not something that you did, right? It's something that happened, and
the way that it was handled immediately after the mistake happened is what led to my demise, I guess, ultimately in that one scenario. I think I do have other stories to tell of how I could have owned my mistakes or asked for help in that role prior to this happening, but there have been some other things that had happened separate from this mistake, and that I don't think the way that I handled those other things was ideal either. Right.
And Veronica could have also, because I'm thinking about me in that position, right? Another way to handle this would have been like, as soon as it happened, like, hey, telling like a superior, someone else in that environment, why is there access in this system for this?
Exactly.
Like, this is really messing up with my role and with my team, and this is what it created, and the company has to take care of this because this is not something that's workable. That should have happened in the first place, and you need to own up to your mistake. That is messing up my clients and my team. Right?
Exactly. Yeah. And I had one teammate in particular that was basically telling me to say that, but I was so scared, and I felt like I was in so much trouble that I couldn't even think clearly, and I didn't think about the long-term consequences, and I didn't think
and you didn't think it was your place.
And I didn't want to, and I didn't want to seem like I was putting off the mistake or the blame on something else, when really it could have been avoided if the system had been correct. And like, I don't know, I just kind of had this like almost self-sacrificing mentality, like, oh, like, well, I'm the banker here now, and like this is what happens when you're a boss, and like I'm just gonna own up to it. And I still kind of thought that the analyst was gonna be let go, like, because he's the one who broke the protocol, he's the one who messed up. So that's why partially I was like trying to be nice to him in the investigation, and it totally backfired. He didn't get let go, I got let go, and it was horrible and it sucked. But
I mean, it sounds like you were put in this position and you were almost like, what do I do? This is who I want to be. Like, I want to protect him, and also I want to take ownership and be mature about this, right? Rather than actually looking at the facts. And thinking about...
I let sort of my emotions and my mind run away with me. Like, it was totally fight, flight, or freeze, and I just... acted from like an instinctual sense, which is not that great in corporate situations like the one I just described.
Nor legal ones.
Exactly, which then led to a legal issue, you know? So
totally. So we just, wanted to show all the sides, because our show is not about just telling you pretty quotes. It's about getting into the reality of how these things are applied into our lives and how they've had consequences into our own, so that we can think at higher levels and micro and macro levels, right? Because they both affect each other. Yeah. So,
and even in like the simplest way, this is like an easy way to look at it, is like when you're in an accident, in a car accident, and your insurance company always tells you, do not admit fault. Like, even if you were at fault, don't say that. And so similarly, like, take that and apply it on a macro level for your life and for your family and the repercussions it's going to have, because it certainly affected not just me and my lifestyle, but it affected the lifestyle I had built for my loved ones. And I was so proud of breaking the cycle of poverty, and then I lost that because of this owning a mistake that I didn't need to go down that road. And so...
But you didn't lose that, because you're still, like, you sharing your wisdom is breaking that cycle still. So I want to make you present. So it's not just the money that you were making where you were breaking the cycle. It's who you are as a person.
Thank you. That's really nice. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean that. Just, sometimes we say things about ourselves to bring ourselves down. And it's important for us to, like, let each other know, like, hey, that's not the case.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you. You're right. All right, you guys. So let us know what you think, what questions you have. Have you been in a situation like that where you made a mistake and you owned up to it in the right way, the wrong way, or you're still thinking about owning up to it? So definitely let us know. We're happy to share more insights with you and answer any questions that you have in the comment section on our YouTube channel.
Thank you so much for watching. And if you have not subscribed, please support our content.
Yes.
Subscribe. Send this to at least 3 friends. This is golden information, you guys. Like, a lot of people don't know how to approach these situations. So thank you again so much for all the support, and talk to you soon.
Ciao.